The next morning, Lubu is sitting in front of a grave. Wen Yuan arrives there, but Lubu was not expecting him to come. Wen Yuan says Lubu killed Ding Yuan last year on the exact same date, and he's the one who should not have came here. But Lubu says that his foster father was a great general as well, but no one seems to care about him after his death. Wen Yuan sits down right next to him, and he asks him if he just said that to humiliate him, or if he really is feeling some regret. Lubu tells him that Ding Yuan pulled him over to his side, but he kept reducing his power at the same time in fear of his capabilities, and if Lubu had acted, it was just a matter of time before he was killed. But maybe Lubu was wrong at that time and Ding Yuan just wanted to check his perseverance. Lubu is having doubts about his decision. That's why he came here to pay his respects. Wen Yuan is a bit shocked as Lubu is acting a bit different and he's showing remorse. Lubu advises Wen Yuan to do his best in assisting the Grand Chancellor to unify the lands. Wen Yuan informs Lubu that every person is against the Grand Chancellor Dongzhou, and riding on the same ship as the Grand Chancellor means they will always have to be wary of stormy waves, and this storm will only get worse from here on out. Lubu tells him that they cannot tell what will happen in the future, so they should just carry out their responsibilities as generals. It starts getting late, so both of them head back together. On their way, Lubu asks Wen Yuan if he can ask him for his help, and Wen Yuan assures him that he will help him as a brother. Lubu tells him that the Grand Chancellor will move the capital regardless of what happens in the battlefield, so he asks Wen Yuan to send his wife and daughter to Chang'an safely, and Wen Yuan tells him not to worry about them. Soon, Lubu will be fighting against coalition armies, and he's itching for their arrival. Lubu moves ahead while Wen Yuan is thinking that Lubu is always crazy for war. The next day, all generals and tacticians are present inside the Grand Chancellor's residence. Everyone stops talking after they see Lubu make his appearance in the court. Lubu gets alerted after hearing someone call out his name. A general called Ziran says that everyone became silent the moment Lubu walked in, and another general, Guo Si, says Lubu has killed Sun Jian after all. They further mock him by saying that this limelight is blinding his eyes. Hu Zhen is present there, and he says that Lubu just got lucky, and Lubu replies by saying that he is correct, and he would not have won that battle if Hu Zhen didn't baited Sun Jian towards his direction by running like a coward. He mockingly says that General Hu Zhen also deserves a reward for his cowardice. Hu Zhen tells him to stop as he only lost after falling into the trap of cunning Sun Jian. But Lubu is not letting this moment to slip by, and he again mocks him by saying that he had already alerted Hu Zhen and he should not blame Sun Jian for being cunning but himself for being an idiot. This makes Hu Zhen really furious and he unsheathes his sword, but General Ziran stops him. A guard alerts everyone about the arrival of the Grand Chancellor. Everyone greets the Chancellor as he makes his entrance in the hall. Chancellor was about to slip when he tried to sit on his chair, but his men somehow gave him support. The Grand Chancellor Dongzhou asks Xuanpan about the edict he bought. Xuanpan has fear in his voice and he says that he was sent here by His Majesty to deliver a message to him. Xuanpan is trembling, but he starts reading the message, which states that Guangdong people have been rebellious since last year, and we are fortunate to have the Great Chancellor, who has unified the country and suppressed the rebellious armies. His achievements are much appreciated by the imperial court, and Great Chancellor Dongzhou will now be appointed as Grand Master, and he will lead the country's administration while unifying all lands. The emperor hopes that Dongzhou will soon suppress the feudal lord's rebellion. Dongzhou is very happy after listening to this news, and he's not even trying to hide his sinister grin. Lubu is thinking that this is the first time a Grand Master is appointed, and now he will rank above the three dukes and the feudal lords. With this rank, those who go up against him will be considered rebels, and Lubu can only think the poisonous prodigy Wen Yu must be the one who could come up with this idea. Dongzhou throws the emperor edict toward Wen Yu, and he catches it. Xuanpan starts running after delivering the edict, and the whole hall congratulates Dongzhou for his promotion. Dongzhou starts laughing and he says that now there's nothing the emperor can do himself but to only rely on him. Dongzhou tells them that he will soon move the capital to Chang'an, but he will let the Xiliang's army mightiness shine before that. Otherwise, his enemies will think that he is on the losing end and he's retreating in fear. Wen Yu tells Dongzhou that Guangdong army has already suffered a great defeat by Lubu and they can just strike them again to prove their prowess, and Dongzhou asks his generals if anyone here is willing to fight with Guangdong army once more. Lubu is planning to wait things out and he will not act hastily, as he has already gained some achievements. Hu Zhen, Guo Si, and Ziran say that they are willing to fight in this battle. Wen Yu is a bit shocked as he was expecting Lubu to volunteer for this war, but his nature seems to have changed a bit in these few days. Dongzhou makes an excuse and he calls out his foster son Lubu. Dongzhou asks him if he wants to prove himself against the Guadong army once again by becoming the vanguard. But Lubu makes an excuse by saying that many issues can arise if his achievements keep on accumulating as his position is not stable. Dongzhou starts laughing and he asks the whole hall if any one of them thinks that Lubu's position is not stable. Dongzhou appoints Lubu as the vanguard with backup from Hua Xiong and Hu Zhen. He orders them to head out to Chenggao immediately, and he will lead the main army by himself as Chenggao is a crucial military location that they cannot afford to lose. All three of them oblige to his orders immediately, and Hu Zhen is a bit pissed as Lubu just climbed above him in rank. After the meeting is over, everyone starts heading back. The two generals know well that Hu Zhen is a jealous person, so they come up to him and tell him that they have a plan that can ensure Lubu's death in this war. He immediately agrees with them and they start discussing the plan. After a few days outside the city gates, Lubu is having a talk with his daughter and wife as he's about to depart for war. His daughter says that she don't want to be apart from him. It reminds Lubu of his sister from the other world. Lubu promises to her that they will soon meet again, and he will buy her favorite sugar-coated haws for her. His daughter has no idea what sugar-coated haws are as they are not available in this world, and Lubu just forgot this fact because he spent so much time in the simulation world. Lubu leaves his family in the care of Wen Yuan and he tells him not to worry about their safety. After getting on the side, Wen Yuan informs Lubu that the army under him in this battle is not his usual elite army, and it looks like it is a mixture of two different rookie armies. Wen Yuan thinks that someone is trying to dissolve his forces of Bing and isolate Lubu. Lubu knows it well and he tells Wen Yuan that every elite soldier starts off as an average soldier. Anyone trained by him is willing to give him his heart and soul. Wen Yuan says that it is getting harder to understand Lubu. If he had told the same thing to him before, he would have taken his halberd to the hall of the Grand Master and demanded an explanation. Lubu thanks Wen Yuan for his concern and he tells him that he's becoming mature as time is passing. After some time, Lubu arrives at the North Army camp, but some horsemen arrived at the gates before him. The horsemen turn out to be Hu Zhen and he informs the guards that he is here to take the commander of battle rams with him. The guards tell him to wait outside while they deliver his message. Hu Zhen ignores their request and he starts heading inside to meet their leader. He gets a flashback of when Guo Si told him that this time the Grand Master sent only Xiliang army and the Northern army on this war, and no one from the Bing cavalry is included. Xiliang army is already under the command of Hu Zhen, which only leaves the Northern army, and if he gains authority over the Northern army, Lubu will be the commander of no one, and Hu Zhen can then easily get rid of him using his both armies. Hu Zhen is happy as he wants to kill Lubu as fast as possible, but all of a sudden some arrows are shot toward him. The arrows fall in front of his horse and it gets afraid. This in turn unbalanced Hu Zhen and he fell on the ground. His men quickly picked him up and he inquires about the traitor who just tried to shot him. Gongsun comes out and he informs Hu Zhen that no one can enter their camp without the tiger's seal. By staying away from women, wine, and bribes, Gongsun became a very distinguished figure in the army. He barely has 1,000 soldiers under his command. However, these elites known as the Battle Rams are capable of defeating enemies several times larger in scale, and they have truly lived up to their name. Hu Zhen is trembling with fear as he is thinking Gongsun is about to rebel, but Gongsun reminds him that anyone who trespasses in his camp without permission is considered an enemy. Gongsun orders his men to stand down, and Hu Zhen reminds him that the Grand Master ordered their army to march toward Chenggao with his army. Hu Zhen further says that they will be under his command, and Gongsun asks him to show the tiger's seal. Hu Zhen says that he cannot show the seal for his little army of a mere 1,000 men, but Gongsun keeps asking for the tiger's seal. Hu Zhen angrily shouts at them for disobeying the orders of a general who is above in rank than him. Lubu comes from behind and he announces that he has the tiger seal in his possession. Lubu compliments Gongsun for keeping up the military conduct of code and he pulls out the tiger seal. Gongsun takes the tiger seal off from Lubu to check its authenticity. After handing over the seal, Lubu mocks Hu Zhen for being a dimwit and ignoring the army rules. An enraged Hu Zhen shouts at him, but Lubu asks him if he has forgotten that he is now one of his subordinates. We get a flashback of how Hu Zhen previously mistreated Lubu. Lubu spares him this time because they are serving the same Grand Master, but he warns him by saying that he will chop off his head and gift it to the enemy if Hu Zhen ever tried to double-cross him again. At the same time, Gongsun matched the tiger seal of Lubu with his own, which proved that it is real. Gongsun welcomes Lubu to his army camp. Hu Zhen, who was previously trembling in fear, promises to himself that sooner or later he will make Lubu pay for this insult. The next day, after witnessing the training session of the battle rams, Lubu compliments Gongsun's men for their immovable momentum and sheer determination to die on the battlefield. Gongsun is very happy after hearing the compliment from a renowned general like Lubu. But Lubu asks Gongsun why the armor and weapons of his army is tattered. Gongsun informs Lubu that his troops have been training diligently every day, but they have been pushed aside by the Xiliang army in recent years, so it's hard for them to get their hands on new resources. After hearing about it, Lubu orders him to bring some men and follow him. He asks him to ready the transportation as well, and Gongsun asks him the reason for that. Lubu tells him that he's going to solve their equipment problem. After some time, they arrive at the Wang Fang's camp. Lubu informs the elite soldier from the battle rams that Wang Fang is Shu Rong's subordinate, and he has good relationship with him, so he's planning to borrow some equipment from him. After hearing the request of Lubu, Wang Fang says that he is already in a tight spot, but Lubu tells him that he has no other choice but to borrow from him, as the trashes from the imperial court are not approving his request for resources. Wang Fang says that he knows that he's a good friend of his general, but he's asking for a big quantity. After hearing the bickering, the elite soldier remembers that Gongsun advised them that Lubu may force other camps into giving up their equipment. The battle rams feared no one, but they are taking off tomorrow, so they cannot afford any accidents today. Gongsun ordered him to stop Lubu if he tries to cause any trouble. Lubu gets up and the elite soldier tries to stop him as he's thinking Lubu is gonna get into a fight. But instead of fighting, Lubu tells Wang Fang that he has an interesting offer for him, and Wang Fang says he's interested in hearing it out. Lubu tells them that Guangdong feudal lords are all rich. Even their equipment is made with nothing but shining gold, and Lubu heard that Wang Fang likes to use spears. Lubu tells him that he will bring top-tier spears smithed with wrought iron for him, and Wang Fang becomes happy after hearing it. The elite soldier is thinking that Lubu is quite different from the rumors about him. After some time, they come to an agreement and Lubu orders the elite soldier to quickly collect the weapons. Meanwhile, a storm is brewing over the city of Xingyang. Someone approaches Ben Chu, who is standing over the castle walls. This person turns out to be the infamous Chinese general Cao Cao, otherwise known as Meng De. Meng De says he cannot stay inside as it is getting quite frustrated inside and he is here for some fresh air. He further says that these feudal lords are fools as they think they can kill a grand master with curses. Ben Chu tells them that they cannot do anything else as they have been suffering losses after losses for several months. Sun Jian, who was the strongest among the feudal lords, is already dead, and now they are only left with General Gongsun and his white cavalry. Ben Chu is a bit skeptical of whether they can win this war against the Grand Master, and he thinks he should have pushed Yuan Shu into spearheading the coalition army. But Meng De reminds him that Yuan Shu is an arrogant guy, and the coalition would have been already dissolved if he was to lead them. Meng De further asks Ben Chu if he has ever considered himself a rebel, and the expression of Ben Chu significantly changes. He further tells Ben Chu that if they keep losing the small battles, then enemy morale will rise, and in that case, everyone including both of them will die as insurgents. Ben Chu is really afraid and he asks Meng De if he has any solution. Meng De informs him that they have been losing so many wars because the feudal lords are unwilling to sacrifice their manpower, and they have never given their all on the battlefield. They need a desperate warrior to spearhead this war, but Ben Chu has no idea about where they can find such a warrior. At the same time, the two sons of Sun Jian inform Ben Chu that their father is dead. Ben Chu was already expecting a defeat, but he had no idea that his main general perished in this war. Bo Fu informs him that Xiliang army was no match for them, but everything changed once Lubu made his appearance with his Bing cavalry. They killed Sun Jian along with General Han and General Chen. No matter what they did, Lubu was completely unstoppable. Meng De starts crying and he says that Sun Jian's spirit and determination were unparalleled. Who knew he could perish so early? He faces the other side and starts crying. Ben Chu gets alerted after seeing his facial expression as Meng De is crying out loud, but in reality, he is laughing as he already knew that Sun Jian was dead. Meng De goes over to the sons of Sun Jian and he tells them to get up, as they are going to avenge Sun Jian along with all of the feudal lords. Bo Fu is very angry and he says that he will be in the vanguard in this war, as he wants to get rid of Lubu no matter the cost. Ben Chu tells him that he will lead the remaining forces of Sun Jian and more provisions will be allocated for his troops. After Sun Jian's sons leave, Ben Chu asks Meng De why he was laughing, and Meng De tells him that they were searching for a desperate warrior, and now they just found one and it is worthy of being a celebration. Next day at the entrance of Lubu's camp, both armies are getting their training from Lubu. Hu Zhen is also present right behind Lubu. They are in the open field and Hu Zhen is forced to stand there and suffer the scorching sun. Lubu is thinking that the battle rams are elites of the North Army as they are exceptionally disciplined and they are standing still under this scorching sun. On the other side, it did not take long for the Xiliang soldiers to topple over left and right. Their discipline is even worse than what he expected in average training sessions. Lubu asks Hu Zhen about the commanders of Xiliang army, but Hu Zhen tells him he has no idea as scrumptious meals are unavoidable before they step on the battlefield, and those two commanders might have drank too much yesterday. Hu Zhen is thinking that punishing a commander before a war is demoralizing for the whole army, and he's excited to see if Lubu still has the guts to punish those commanders. Lubu tells his men to beat the drum. The soldier starts beating the drum while announcing that those who do not turn up before the first strike will be flogged 40 times. Those who do not turn up before the second strike will have their bodies pierced with arrows. And as he's about to strike the drum for the third time, two commanders rush over to the field and they say they are sorry for being late. Hu Zhen asks them why they are belittling the military affairs and both of them apologize. Hu Zhen accepts their apology, but he warns them that this is their last chance. Lubu asks Gongsun about the punishment given to those who do not arrive before the third strike, and Gongsun tells him that death is the punishment for it. Lubu orders his men to capture both commanders as they will be punished according to the military laws. Both commanders beg Hu Zhen to save them. Hu Zhen tries to convince Lubu by saying that killing a subordinate right before war will ruin everyone's morale. But Lubu is not buying any of his bullcrap today and he beheads one commander with a sword. The second commander starts crying out of fear for his life. Hu Zhen is quite angry at Lubu for killing his men, but Lubu says that these two commanders were having their sweet time while every Xiliang soldier was being tormented under the sun. Lubu handpicks two soldiers to come forward. Lubu compliments them both for having the best posture among the Xiliang soldiers, and he asks them if they don't hate being led by incompetent leaders, but both of them are hesitant to answer his question. Lubu hands over a sword to them, and he informs them that whoever kills this commander can take his position, and the one who is slower can only be a deputy. Both of them drop their spears quickly and one of them manages to grab the sword. Without wasting any time, he leaps toward the commander and he beheads him without any second thought. Blood starts spurting out of the headless commander and the soldier is still in shock as to what he just did in the spur of the moment. Lubu comes up from behind and compliments him for his good work, and he makes him the new commander. Lubu tells the rest of the army that his rules are simple. Violators of the military law will be severely punished, and exploits on the battlefield will be rewarded justly. Gongsun is thinking that Lubu is quite amazing as killing commanders of an army can demoralize the army, but he then replaced them with members of their own army, which uplifted their morale. Chang'an is also known as Hulao Pass. Rumors has it that the Emperor Mu of Zhou used to keep the tigers offered by the commoners there. That's why some call it Hulao Pass. It is surrounded by canals and mountain Gao connected to its west. The rocky terrain forms a solid natural barrier around it. Li Su reports to Lubu that their sentries have returned. Scouts from the opposite faction were seen lurking around the pass, and it seems like the coalition forces' operation has begun. Li Su has been in Chengao for some time, so Lubu asks him how have the coalition forces been allocating their manpower. Li Su says that he has no idea as he was merely assigned to guard the city, and scouting the enemy's layout is beyond his responsibilities. Lubu reminds him that as the gatekeeper of the Chang'an, it's his responsibility to perceive both his and his enemy's strength. Had the Chang'an not been a natural barrier, he would have long bitten the dust. Li Su becomes a bit afraid, but Lubu says that he was just pointing out his mistakes for his own good. Lubu tells Li Su to send his scouts out for scouting the surrounding areas for enemy encampments. Lubu is thinking that it was Li Su who advised him to kill Ding Yuan back then, even if Lubu hates him for that, but he cannot blame someone else for his own final decision. Lubu orders Hua Xiong to clear the outskirts from enemies and he agrees to it. Meanwhile, at the granary, a lot of resources are being moved there in a hurry. Yu Shi reports to Yuan Shu that a troop of Xiliang soldiers is heading in their direction. Yuan Shu asks him about the identity of the leader, and Yu Shi says that he is Hua Xiong, who previously killed Zhu Darong. Yuan Shu asks him if he is stronger than him, but Yu Shi says he has no idea, but he managed to defeat one of the 4 generals under Sun Jian. Yuan Shu motivates him by saying that the army of Sun Jian was defeated by Lubu as they are mere trashes. But they cannot defeat Yu Shi as he's one of his generals, and Yu Shi hesitantly agrees with him. Yuan Shu orders him to bring the head of Hua Xiong to him as it will boost his position among the other feudal lords. Yu Shi knows well that he's not as strong as Sun Jian or any of the generals under him, so there are less chances for him to win this battle against their killers. But he cannot tell that to Yuan Shu that he climbed the ranks by using some petty tricks. Meanwhile, on the other side, a scout comes forward to report to Hua Xiong. The scout informs him that an opposition force is speeding toward them, but there are only a few men. Hua Xiong says that their response is quite swift, and he orders his men to march forward. Hua Xiong's army shoots a volley of arrows toward Yu Shi's army. Yu Shi orders the front row of his army to raise the shields. They raise their shields in time, but some of them are not fast enough, and they get pierced by the arrows. Yu Shi orders the men at back rows to charge forward. Both armies charge at each other at max speed, but Hua Xiong has an advantage as most of his men are on horsebacks. At last, both armies clash with each other, but the army under Yu Shi seems to be barely holding their ground. Yu Shi knows well that his Nanyang infantry has only conducted some supplementary missions, and they cannot hold back the enemies for much longer, but he still orders his men to charge forward toward their deaths while he tries to make his escape. Hua Xiong cuts down some infantrymen along with their armors. He looks toward the enemy general, but Yu Shi seems to be running away, and he tells his men to hold the enemies as he will come back with reinforcements. Without giving him any time to escape, Hua Xiong starts chasing after him. At the same time, Yuan Shu is having a feast with Wen Jie, and he tells him that Hua Xiong is nothing special. The whole battlefield is dusty, but once the dust settles, Yu Shi will bring his head. Before he can say anything else, they hear cries for help from his general Yu Shi, who asks them to open the gate. Both generals are a bit stunned as they had high hopes for Yu Shi and he's about to get cut down. Without giving him enough time to react, Hua Xiong beheads Yu Shi with a single powerful strike from his spear. The decapitated body of Yu Shi falls down on the ground. Hua Xiong challenges the enemy generals after introducing himself. Yuan Shi gets angry and he breaks his wine glass. He orders another one of his generals to bring the head of Hua Xiong to him, but his general seems to be a bit hesitant. Yuan Shi asks him why he is afraid of only a few thousand soldiers from the Xiliang army, and Liu Xun informs him that they have an advantage in numbers, but they are hardly ready for a fight after their long and hard journey. Yuan Shi starts cursing his own men, but Wen Jie informs him to not get hyper. He introduces a giant man by the name of Pang Feng, who will take care of Hua Xiong for them. Pang Feng is looking forward to his fight with Hua Xiong. The poor infantrymen are still barely holding back the cavalry from the Xiliang army. All of a sudden, the city gates open and they tell each other to retreat back. The infantrymen start running back to the gates while a horseman comes out. Hua Xiong lets the infantrymen retreat and he asks about the identity of this horseman. The horseman introduces himself as Pan Feng. He then chops off the limbs and heads of those who are trying to escape. This shocks their fellow infantrymen who have no idea about what to do next. Pan Feng then starts rushing toward Hua Xiong while killing every single infantryman on his way. Pang Feng tries to slash Hua Xiong, but he manages to dodge it. Hua Xiong then retaliates by striking him back, which gets blocked by Pan Feng. Pan Feng then starts using a barrage of attacks on Hua Xiong. He can easily dodge all of his attacks as he has brute force but no speed. Hua Xiong then skillfully pins down his weapon on the ground. Fan Peng used too much force in that previous attack and his weapon got stuck into the ground. Hua Xiong seizes this chance to swiftly chop off his head. Both warlords who were spectating it get really pissed. Wen Jie, who has just lost one of his most powerful fighters, tells his men to gather up as he's going to kill Hua Xiong today. Meanwhile, inside the city, a sentry arrives. He informs both Meng De and Ben Chu that General Yuan and Inspector Wen Jie have both been defeated. Ben Chu is still skeptical as the war has not even started yet and they lost so easily. The sentry informs them that someone showed up and killed both General Yu Shi and Pan Feng. Inspector Wen Jie led his men to avenge them, but their efforts were to no avail as Inspector Wen Jie just returned back after suffering several injuries. Before the scout can say anything else, both Yuan Shu and Wen Jie arrive at the camp and they are pissed at Hua Xiong. Yuan Shi asks for more reinforcements, but he gets rejected while Meng De tries to uplift the spirit of Wen Jie by saying that winning or losing are a part of life, and he's glad that he returned safely. Ben Chu says that marching out after having two big losses on their side will just demoralize their army, but Yuan Shi is still hesitant to back down. Meng De tells them both to join their meeting as they were discussing plans on capturing Chenggao City. They all gather up on the table and Meng De starts telling them their strategy. Hua Xiong is a really powerful general who is on the rise, but they have Lubu as well who outclasses him. Lubu even managed to defeat Sun Jian in a terrific manner, and killing him would bring them halfway to the victory. General Hu Zhen is just an incompetent leader in the Xiliang army. He is the most crucial weak link in all of this, and they can take advantage of his weakness. Li Su is the general who is tasked with guarding Chenggao, and he has always shut himself behind the gate. The Grandmaster must have sent some reinforcement for them to be so bold enough. Chenggao's geography is a major plus for their defense, but the Xiliang army is much more proficient on the offense. That's why they keep on being on the offensive. Ben Chu asks him if he has any idea on how to counter them. Mengde says that they will limit their advantage by camping right outside Chenggao City and attacking them anytime they want. If they force the Xiliang army into playing defense, then the tides of this war can be turned. The next day in Chenggao at Lubu's residence, a scout arrives with the report that the coalition forces have arrived. Hua Xiong says that 2 of them were just killed by him yesterday, so he did not expect them to strike back so soon. Lubu asks the scouts about who is leading the coalition forces. The scout says, based on the flags, it should be Hanyi's feudal lord Wang Kuang. The other 7 feudal lords are also on their way. Hua Xiong asks for Lubu's permission to head out first, but Lubu tells him that he will not be the one in the front line this time, and he calls out Gongsun. Lubu orders Gongsun to gather everyone as it is time to confront the enemy, and he orders Hua Xiong to tag along with him. Hu Zhen says that he has made many mistakes in the past, and now he wants to repent for them by assisting Lubu in this fight. Lubu tells Hu Zhen to not put up an act, as rats should just stay in their rat holes. Instead of getting pissed, Hu Zhen smirks, which means he is up to nothing good. After some time, both armies come face to face against each other. Wang Kuang is leading this army and he looks quite motivated. He asks Lubu why he only brought a few thousand men with him and if he's looking down on him. Lubu mockingly says that Xu Rong defeated him last year and their grandmaster broke through his city without much effort. The few men Lubu brought with him here are more than enough to defeat a weakling like him. Wang Kuang orders one of his generals named Fang Yue to kill Lubu. Lubu slowly moves ahead with his horse while Fang Yue is sprinting at full speed, as speed is a crucial element to maximize the strength of long weapons. The greater the momentum, the harder the weapon hits, but Lubu is riding so slow despite their distance. Even if Lubu is a reincarnated god of war, there is no way he can withstand his striking force. All of a sudden, Lubu flares up and he sprints forward at an unbelievable speed. Lubu uses this speed to cut down Fang Yue into 2 pieces along with his hard armor and weapon. Wang Kuang gets a bit afraid after watching the savageness of Lubu. He orders his men to surround Lubu from all sides. The whole army start rushing toward Lubu in unison, but Lubu is not fazed by their numbers as he easily keeps on chopping them like a grinder. At the same time, Gongsun orders the battle rams to charge forward. The battle rams are easily taking care of the vanguard of Wang Kuang's army. Wang Kuang can't believe it as he's thinking he's up against an army of monsters, and finally he orders his men to retreat. But before he can start running, Lubu rushes toward him at max speed. He strikes Wang Kuang with the side of his weapon. The force behind it was so strong that his bones start cracking. Wang Kuang gets tossed up into the sky due to the pressure, and his whole army can see him. He then falls down into the middle of his army, and they get really afraid after seeing the expression on the face of their dead feudal lord, and his armor is battered as well. A scout reports to Ben Chu that Wang Kuang died while fighting on the battlefield. The Hanyi army under him has crumbled and they are scrambling for their lives. Ben Chu asks Mengde about what they should do, and Mengde tells him to rest assured as the show has just begun. Lubu might have gotten a taste of victory, but he doubts that he will be able to return victorious. Meanwhile, outside the Chenggao gate, Hua Xiong is screaming at the guards to open the gates, but no one is responding. Lubu tells him to stop shouting as those inside might have turned against them. He now knows well why Hu Zhen acted so strange back then. He got everything planned beforehand. He only offered to help to prevent any suspicion. Hua Xiong says that the 7 feudal lords will arrive in no time, and if they are still stuck here at that time, they can be easily defeated. Lubu orders Gongsun and Hua Xiong to get everyone into formation and prepare for a breakout. The field where Lubu fought against Wang Kuang is littered with the corpses belonging to the Hanyi army. 3 different feudal lords arrive at that location. One of the feudal lords, Gongsun, is quite sad after watching the fate of Hanyi army. One of his soldiers informs him that a survivor asked to see him. The soldier informs Gongsun that their feudal lord has perished alongside many other generals, including Fang Yue. Lubu went on a rampage and wreaked havoc in their army. Those who are still alive are now scattered in all directions. Gongsun asks the survivor if Lubu is really that much ruthless, but before he can reply, a scout arrives with a report. The scout informs him that Lubu is back with his men, but the feudal lords don't know why he is coming back as his soldiers must be exhausted after this fight just now. Tao Gian suggests that the 3 of them should join forces to wipe out Lubu, but Zhang Yang says that Lubu is known for his ruthlessness and he can't be overwhelmed with numbers. And why would he return to the battlefield if he knows that victory is impossible? Gongsun is quite sure that he can take on Lubu by himself using his white cavalry. He rushes on ahead with his white cavalry as he wants to find out whether Lubu can best him or not. On the other side, Hua Xiong spots the incoming army, and he informs Lubu that this white cavalry belongs to Gongsun, who is quite prominent in the northern regions. His cavalry consists only of robust white horses. They are the most elite troops among their army. They have never tasted defeat, so Hua Xiong suggests Lubu to not take them lightly. Lubu smirks as he has seen elite cavalries of 10 times the size in the simulator world. Lubu orders Gongsun to order his archers to get into formation. After getting into formation, they fire a huge volley of arrows toward the white cavalry. Lubu rushes toward the white cavalry along with the arrows. Gongsun orders his men to get ready for the fight. Gongsun's army start deflecting the incoming barrage of arrows with their spears and halberds. Gongsun rushes toward Lubu while dodging the arrows. Both of them clash with each other at max speed, which gives out a huge shockwave. Lubu compliments Gongsun for having such a good quality spear. Gongsun also praises his halberd, which is called Fang Tian. Hua Xiong and Gongsun both order their platoons to charge ahead. Both elite armies charge at each other with the intent to kill. Regular soldiers keep on attacking back and forth while their leaders are duking it out. Lubu and Gongsun are giving their all, as they both know well the one who even holds a little bit back will fall in this field. The sound of their clashing halberds can be heard throughout the battlefield. Both of them change their tactic as they start moving ahead while attacking each other. Gongsun is very quick and he thrusts his spear toward Lubu. The spear grazes through the skin under Lubu's forearm. Lubu is thinking that the weapon of Gongsun is quite good as he managed to sneak in a jab between strikes. Lubu is thinking that the initial level of heart strengthening helped him a lot during his fight with Sun Jian, so he decides to use his newly unlocked liver strengthening. A lot of ki and blood starts circulating near his liver and heart, making him stronger with each passing second. Gongsun is thinking that Lubu is getting more fired up as their fight is dragging. He feels that something is wrong as Lubu should have gone for the kill as his stamina is totally overwhelming his. But Lubu is intentionally keeping things at his pace. In short, Lubu is toying with him until Gongsun dies from complete burnout. Gongsun is thinking that Lubu is humiliating him and he prefers death over humiliation, so he charges head-on with a jab attack. Their clash ends in someone being stabbed. Gongsun's spear falls far away from him. Lubu stabbed Gongsun near his heart and he is thinking that maybe he has already reached his limit. Despite being born in a noble family, Gongsun was looked down upon for his mother's inferior background. Without any lust for luxury, he set off for life in the battlefields from an early age. In the 5th year of Zhongpin, Gongsun troops were trapped in Guanji City for over 200 days. They were running out of rations and the soldiers were eventually doomed with over half of the men being dead or injured. In order to uplift the morale of his men, Gongsun said that their vow to destroy the northern tribes will never be shaken. They will all act as each other's wing from now on, and if victory befalls them, they will name themselves the White Cavalry. With that being said, they marched out of the castle gates and wreaked havoc among the enemies. His white cavalry fights with a fusion of determination and courage, and only those who have gone through countless rough rides could master such power. Gongsun pulls out his sword as he's determined to never give up until the last moment. Then he tries to stab Lubu using all of his force, but unfortunately, Lubu is not a pushover, and he catches his sword with his bare hands. Lubu then slashes him with his halberd. Lubu pulls up his weapon and he tells Gongsun to better choose his enemies in the next life. As Lubu is about to kill him for real, he feels an immense killing aura from behind. He immediately blocks the attack coming from his back, then he pushes the attacker away from him. This attacker is called Zhang Fei, and he says that Lubu holding off thousands of men by himself is just a joke as he's going to defeat him today. Zhang Fei rushes toward Lubu to attack him again with his spear. While blocking his attack, Lubu asks him about where he is from. They both keep on clashing with each other and Lubu is thinking that this black horseman is not any less experienced than him. However, his rigid technique means he won't last past 80 rounds. But before Lubu can focus on the black horseman, he feels a green dragon murderous aura coming from behind. Lubu barely manages to dodge it and he buckles up for another powerful fighter. This horseman is called Guan Yu and he compliments Lubu for having such swift reflexes and an incredible horse. Both horsemen plan to join forces in order to defeat Lubu. Both of them get powered up and Lubu can see their murderous intent with his naked eye. After getting geared up, they rush toward Lubu at max speed to finish him off as soon as possible. Lubu, who is getting overwhelmed with this sense of danger, thinks it's quite amazing, as he can fight against both of them to his heart's content without holding back. Both parties keep going back and forth with their attacks for some time, but Lubu seems to be having the upper hand. Both brothers try to attack Lubu in unison so he can get less chances to attack them, but Lubu manages to dodge their attacks by ducking down on his horse. Their fight gets more intense as both parties can't land a decisive blow to the other, and they keep on going back and forth with their attacks. Both brothers are managing to successfully pin down Lubu's movement for a while. The soldiers around them stop their fight to seize this once-in-a-life opportunity to witness the fight between the two brothers and the god of war. Gongsun, who is spectating from afar, is trying to gauge the extent of their abilities. He is thinking that those two brothers are not that much different from roaring dragons and tigers. Another horseman called Liu Bei comes up to Gongsun and he says that he is sorry for being late. Gongsun asks him why are all of them in here. Liu Bei says that their desire to overthrow those bastards drove them here, and it's fortunate that his two sworn brothers arrived so early. On the other side, Lubu is still duking it out against the two brothers. Lubu compliments them by saying that both of them are too competent to be nameless commoners, and he asks them for their names so that can be written on their tombstones. Zhang Fei angrily introduces himself and his brother, but all of a sudden another person appears behind Lubu with intense killing intent. Lubu manages to block his attack thanks to his high threat perception. Lubu is thinking that with his benevolent appearance, this third brother is nowhere suppressing as the other two. However, he is emitting a faint imperial aura. Lubu says that their appearances are unlike the others, and if they have been acting alone and waiting for their chance to shine. Liu Bei says that they have been under Gongsun's command for now, and they are in dire need of Lubu's head to make a name for themselves. Lubu has to only leave 3 things behind, including his halberd, his horse, and his head. These 3 brothers will divide these things among themselves. As they rush toward him, Lubu says that unfortunately, he don't have a plan of giving them any one of these things. A soldier belonging to the battle rams pierces through the chest of a white horseman, but his neck gets pierced from behind. The white cavalry seems to have gotten an upper hand in the battle. Lubu is thinking that he would have lived to take this fight to check out the full extent of his heart and liver strengthening, but his subordinates are all engaged in a bloody fight, and they need to break out as soon as possible. The death count will only rise if he drags this fight any longer. So Lubu unlocks his max heart and liver strengthening at the same time. Lubu does a big slash to open up a path for himself, and then he starts running while saying that they will fight another time. Lubu shouts out to Hua Xiong and Gongsun to inform them that their enemies are weakest at the right wing, so he orders them to summon all the soldiers and focus on a breakout through their right wing. The other 2 feudal lords are spectating the battle from a distance. Another feudal lord called Kuang comes up to them and he asks them about the status of the battle. Zhang Yang informs him that Gongsun went on ahead to battle it out with Lubu, and they are currently in a stalemate. A scout comes up to them to inform them that General Gongsun is injured after losing the fight and Lubu is breaking through the north side with his men. Zhang Yang is a bit worried as the infamous white cavalry of Gongsun is having a hard time against Lubu. Tao Gian says that Lubu is probably at the end of his tether, and this is the perfect opportunity to take over the achievements. Zhang Yang orders one of his general Mu Sun to kill Lubu. Kuang orders another general under him called Wu An to help Mu Sun. Lubu is clearing the way for his army and his generals order their men to follow Lubu's lead. They manage to pierce through the weak formation of the enemy. But as soon as Lubu breaks out, 2 more generals come running toward him and they start cursing him out loud. They are quite unfortunate as Lubu is in a hurry, so he chops them both in one strike. The platoon from Bing gets scared after their 2 generals got defeated. Lubu tells his fellow townsmen from Bing to listen carefully. He says that he truly don't wish to harm any of them, but if they wouldn't back off, they will suffer cruelest fate than death. The soldiers from Bing open a path for him. Lubu along with his men start rushing out of their formation. Wu An has not died out yet, but he lost one of his hands and he curses the soldiers from Bing for being so much unreliable. Lubu still needs to break through 2 more feudal lords as they start rushing toward him from both sides. Lubu is thinking that both of these armies are going to merge before them, and then it will become impossible to pave a straight path out. He will be surrounded if he goes straight or to the right, but on the left side, Tao Gian's army is the closest and weakest army out of all. Lubu orders his men to break out from the left side. Tao Gian becomes afraid after watching Lubu and his forces rushing toward him as he was just planning on stealing the kills, but now he has to face them head on. Tao Gian is a coward, so he orders his men to stay away from the path of the retreating army of Lubu. After passing through them, Lubu smirks and he tells Tao Gian that he is the wisest of them all. Their path ahead is clear as Lubu can't see any more forces belonging to the feudal lords. Lubu asks Hua Xiong about how many soldiers are left. Hua Xiong informs him that most of them died and the only ones who made it out are from the Xiliang cavalry. The Xiliang infantry and the battle rams, including Gongsun, have been caught up and surrounded by the Beihai cavalry. Lubu asks Hua Xiong to retreat with everyone else. With that being said, Lubu starts heading back to the battlefield. But unknown to him, the Xiliang cavalry decide to give backup to Lubu, and they start following him. The battle rams and Xiliang infantry are all surrounded from all sides by the enemy, and Lubu is making his way back to the battlefield. At the same time, Tao Gian is hoping to gain merit by finishing off the battle rams and the remaining Lubu's infantry. But before he can order his troops to attack the enemy, a scout informs him that Lubu is charging at them once again from behind. Tao Gian's expression changes as he has no idea what Lubu is thinking right now, and he orders his men to stay away from Lubu. Another feudal lord called Bao Xin spots Lubu and his cavalry coming back to the battlefield. He orders his archers to rain down arrows on the crowd as they can't miss this opportunity. One of his men says that he should reconsider it as their coalition forces are tangled in there as well. Bao Xin says that it's the perfect opportunity for them to weaken other feudal lords, so he orders his men to shoot the arrows. Inside the encirclement, Gongsun is barely fending off the enemies. Lubu arrives there to help him out. Gongsun asks Lubu why he has returned back. Lubu tells him to shut his trap up as they are here to rescue him. Lubu picks him up by the collar and tells him to man up to live another day or he will become a joke among the Xiliang soldiers. Lubu further says that he needs to stay alive before the North Army's glory can be restored. But before he can reply to Lubu, Gongsun sees a lot of arrows heading toward them. He pushes Lubu to the side to shield him from the upcoming barrage of arrows. This scene reminds Lubu of the same thing that happened back in the simulation world where General Yan's daughter pushed him to the side to save his life. After saving Lubu, she said to him that everything will be alright as long as Lubu survives. The same thing happened here and Gongsun says the same thing to him. Tao Gian and his men also got caught up in the arrows and most of his men are dying as well. Hua Xiong asks Gongsun about his injury and he tells him that it's not fatal, but his voice is trembling. Lubu says that it is great that Hua Xiong came here as well. Lubu tells them that he has changed his mind and he points toward a direction. He orders all of them to break through from that direction and on their way, they are going to get the head of the general who ordered his men to shoot the arrows. Lubu orders Hua Xiong to help Gongsun onto his red horse. Lubu temporarily activated blood pump mode due to his inner rage. Lubu tells them that he will use his feet instead of the horse and he gets ready to use perks of the simulation system to the max. Lubu puts all of his power into his feet to launch himself toward Bao Xin. Bao Xin can't believe a human can be so much fast and he orders his men to shoot down Lubu. Lubu keeps on deflecting and dodging the arrows by moving in a zigzag formation. Without wasting any further time, he jumps toward Bao Xin. Bao Xin sees death flashing before his eyes and he begs Lubu for his life, but Lubu slashes him into two pieces with his halberd. Lubu gets surrounded from all sides by Bao Xin men, but Lubu easily keeps on chopping them like paper, and he seems unstoppable. Bao Xin's men try to run away as far as possible from the rampaging beast, but they are not so lucky as Lubu is hell-bent on completely destroying them. Meanwhile, on the other side, a scout reports to Ben Chu that the 8 feudal lords had joined forces outside Chang'an, but Lubu still managed to escape with almost 1,000 of his men. The Hene soldiers dispersed after their warlord died and almost half of the elite white cavalry perished, while Beihai army was completely annihilated. Lubu went on a rampage and he kept killing hundreds of men by himself while taking the heads of several other generals in the process. Only Tao Gian's army remains largely intact as he let Lubu go without a fight. Ben Chu says that Lubu must have died from exhaustion after all of this and maybe he's possessed by some divine devils. Mengde tells Ben Chu to leave Lubu alone for now because without Lubu, capturing Chang'an is a piece of cake for them now. Hu Zhen is on the walls of Chang'an and he's thinking that Lubu must be torn apart by the coalition army by now. But it won't be easy to defend this place, so he will have to rely on Li Su for now. Hu Zhen orders his men to summon Li Su. Li Su asks Hu Zhen why he has banned him from meeting Lubu, and Hu Zhen tells him that Lubu has defected to the enemy. He further says that he had no idea if Li Su was an accomplice of Lubu, that's why he kept him under watch. But Li Su says that if Lubu had defected, then why Hu Zhen is still alive. because it will be easier for him to just kill them both and hand over Chang Gao to the enemy. Hu Zhen says that he is right, as he just made up that story to get rid of Lubu, but Li Su needs to act smart if he wants to live long in this situation. He tells Li Su that it won't be long before the coalition forces start attacking the city, and they will both be dead if the city falls, so both of them have the same goal for now. Li Su says that he agrees with him, but he needs to go and get the tiger's seal to order the soldiers around, and Hu Zhen agrees to it. Li Su is thinking that he has invested a lot of effort into Changgao City, but Hu Zhen just snatched his powers away despite being a newcomer. He even set up Lubu, who must be long dead by now. The way things are going now, even if they manage to fend off the enemy, he will be killed. So he is thinking of fleeing the city, and if he tells the Grand Master about what Hu Zhen did, then maybe he will be spared. After some time, all armies belonging to the feudal lords gather outside Changgao. Liu Bei says that they can forget about the recent setback if they manage to conquer the city, and Gongsun says that he is right. Tao Gian orders the catapults to get ready. His men lit the rocks on fire using oil. On his command, they launched the catapults at the same time. The fiery rocks hit the buildings, damaging the city walls in the process. The infantry moves forward with their siege battle rams and ladders to scale the walls. Hu Zhen's men are protecting him while he asks his men why is Li Su taking so long. His men report to him that they cannot find Li Su and maybe he ran away. Hu Zhen gets down as he knows well that Li Su must have ran away to tell the Grand Master about the blunder he just did. One of his men asks him about how they should defend their city, and Hu Zhen tells them to just surrender. After some time, Gongsun makes his way inside the city along with other feudal lords. He is thinking that they conquered Changgao so easily, which has been an obstacle for them for more than a year. Someone smacks Hu Zhen's face with a powerful slap. It turns out to be Zhang Fei, who asks Hu Zhen why he let Lubu out. Hu Zhen says that his hatred for Lubu runs deep in blood. That's why he denied his entry, hoping the coalition army will eliminate him. But he didn't expect Lubu to turn the tides on them and escape. Liu Bei says that even if Lubu escaped, he don't have enough men left and he's no longer a threat now that they have captured Changgao. Zhang Fei suggests that they should kill this backstabber Hu Zhen, but Liu Bei says that they should not do such a thing because Hu Zhen raised the white flag and surrendered to them and no one will cooperate with them in the future if they execute him. Hearing that, Hu Zhen boasts that he's quite close with the Grand Master and he can give them some secret intel about him. This shocks everyone as they were not expecting to get their hands on a man with real information about the Grand Master. Gongsun orders his men to set up a banquet for Hu Zhen, and he says that they should talk further while having some good food. During nighttime, Lubu and his tattered men are resting in a forest. Gongsun tells Lubu that his injuries are nothing serious, and he should rest as well. Lubu asks Gongsun that if they manage to return safely, he will request with the Imperials for Gongsun to be placed under his command. Gongsun says that this war has really made the battle rams respect him even more, and he will gladly join him. Hua Xiong arrives and he reports that they have finished counting the remaining men. There are 521 horsemen and 352 infantrymen from the battle rams. They have now 873 men in total, and Lubu is thinking that if he started with more than 3,000 soldiers, but still so many infantrymen survived that long battle, which is quite amazing. Lubu says that their soldiers must be worn and torn by now, and they need food and shelter, so he asks Hua Xiong about any nearby town of smaller scale. Hua Xiong informs him that some soldiers have reported about a small town named Junyi 20 km away from their current location, and he asks Lubu if he plans to capture it as a base for their recovery. Lubu says he is correct, but his body has reached its limit for today after those intense fights, so he orders Hua Xiong to lead cavalries into the town to secure its 4 gates, and Lubu will arrive there later. As Hua Xiong is about to leave, Lubu asks him to tell the soldiers to only steal rations from the rich. They can only resort to force if they refuse to provide food. Hua Xiong is a bit hesitant, but he agrees to it. Lubu sits right next to Gongsun and he's feeling quite tired. Lubu is thinking that he was being too careless and he's determined to take his revenge on that backstabbing bastard, Hu Zhen. All of a sudden, Gongsun says that he never expected Lubu to sympathize with the poor commoners. Lubu asks him why he thinks so, and Gongsun informs him there are rumors about Lubu out there which suggest that he is a cruel and merciless person. But after following him for some time, he came to a realization that those rumors are fake. Lubu asks him what if his change in character is due to his many transformations after living through numerous lives. Gongsun thinks that he's telling the truth, but Lubu starts laughing out loud. Gongsun says that when Lubu was fighting today, he was releasing an aura which looked very unnatural for this world. Lubu says that he is correct, and as he was about to tell him something important, a hungry tiger pops out of the woods. Gongsun says that this tiger looks terrific, but Lubu tells him not to call him terrifying as he's going to end up as their meal today. Lubu grabs his bow and arrow. Lubu stretches the bow, but he could not pull it too much because he's totally exhausted. Lubu releases the arrow, but at the same time, someone else throws a halberd toward the tiger. The halberd gets stabbed in the head of the tiger and the arrow gets buried in its neck. Lubu asks about the identity of the person who threw the halberd, and he's thinking that someone who is capable of throwing a halberd directly into the skull of the tiger cannot be a common person. This person's name is Dian Wei, and he's releasing an unknown type of aura, and he says that he tracked this tiger all the way here as it was supposed to be his ration for a few days. Lubu is thinking that this person has a parallel aura to his, and he is undoubtedly an exceptional prodigy, and he needs to take him in. Lubu says that in that case, he can take the tiger. Lubu first introduces himself and then he asks for his name. Lubu releases some aura to intimidate him. Dan Wei can feel that this person is no ordinary soldier after seeing his aura, and he introduces himself to Lubu. Lubu compliments him for having such a good physique, and he asks him if he's interested in joining the military. Dian Wei tells him that he can't do that as he has already killed some people. He further says that if he ever leaves this forest and the officials get notified, then he will be left with no other choice but to kill more people. Lubu starts laughing out loud after hearing it. Lubu informs him that no average laws can restrict him if he joins his army, and it's even better if he has killed some people before. But he can kill to his heart's content once he steps on the battlefield, and he will be even rewarded for his kills. Dian Wei asks him if he's telling the truth. Lubu tells him that he will appoint him as a discipline enforcer, and later on he will appeal for a higher position for him once he starts contributing to the military. Dian Wei gets down on his knees out of respect for his new general. He has nothing to offer to Lubu for now, so he gives his prey to Lubu and he accepts it. Lubu is thinking that this feeling of receiving gifts from others is quite amazing, and he orders the soldiers to roast the tiger. The next morning, a scout comes with a report that Hua Xiong captured the Junyi town, and they will need about 8 hours by foot to reach that town. But Lubu says that 8 hours by foot is a lot of travel. Dian Wei informs them that he knows about a shortcut that would lead them to Junyi town in just 4 hours.